Yeah, man. Well, I mean, like, what's the highest dose of LSD that you've personally ever taken?
I guess I've gone up to about 400 micrograms. It really just depends on the type of experience that I'm trying to.
Whoa, wait, bro. 400 mics? I mean, that's a pretty decent dose and all, but you're not really tripping. I mean, at least in my opinion, until you get into the range of something like 800 mics. And then, if you really want to take things into, like, the next level, bro, you've got to try a thumbprint. I mean, you may think you know what tripping is even at like 800, but once you have your first fucking thumbprint, that is some next level, extra dimensional type shit. That, that is what real tripping is.
If you are currently struggling with a spiritual or psychedelic ego and you're in the stages of recognizing that your ego has snuck back in the most sneaky of ways of making you feel like you're special and better than others because you take psychedelics or you follow spirituality, this is actually a good place to be in, because I think it's extremely common, more common than most people want to admit, to develop these types of egos. And now that you've recognized it, that's the first step, is recognizing it. Now that you're aware that you have a psychedelic ego, you can take the steps to lessen it. I've said before that I don't believe that as long as we're in these bodies, we can live a life free from ego. There are some people who like to state that their goal in life, their goal, is to destroy their ego, and then their goal is to be in that enlightened state always. But you would ask them, right? Well, who's the one who is desiring to have this goal? And they would say, I am. So you desire to lose your ego. They'd be like, yeah. Who's the one who's desiring? The ego is desiring to lose itself? It's absolutely ridiculous. The ego cannot desire to lose itself. They can get really sneaky though, and they'll be like, no, bro, no. It's the awareness talking. And it's a load of shit. It's a crock of shit. As long as you are a breathing, functioning, talking human being, you are going to be in your ego. And I don't like how people who practice spirituality like to behave like the ego is the enemy. The ego is not the enemy. Your ego is here for a reason. If we weren't supposed to have this ego, we wouldn't have it. True, some people have too much ego. Some people are operating way too much in their sense of self, and a lot of people in society can't see anything beyond their ego, and it's the reason for a lot of pain and suffering in this world. It's a reason for a lot of crime. So I'm not saying that I think people should continue living the way they are living. I'm simply saying that there's two extremes. There's the extreme of living in the ego, like 100%. Then there's the extreme of believing that you're crushing the ego. And it's really ironic that a lot of these people who believe that they're trying to destroy their ego actually develop some of the biggest egos of any of us. Like, look at a lot of gurus. A lot of people who are gurus, they secretly love the fact that they're teaching. They love the fact that there's people who look up to them. And it's been something that I've been really wanting to be adamant that I'm not. I'm not a guru. I make a lot of videos talking about really bad experiences where I was humbled. And that could be another sneaky ego. That could be my ego being like, look, I'm so fucking humble. I'm so humble. How could I be there? It's like, no matter what you do, the ego is trying to sneak and slither its way into your existence. So what I propose is, if you are currently living with a spiritual or psychedelic ego and you've recognized this, if you can realize that there's some validity in what I'm saying and your ego isn't so strong that it's like, nah, bro, that's not me. If you can actually catch that slimy sucker and hold on to him for a second, then you can take some steps to move forward from this in a positive light. The number one thing is to learn how to work with the ego. The ego is not the enemy, it's your partner. And it's a partner that you can't live without. So if you're constantly trying to kill it and, get away from it and live a life that is, so holier than thou, like spiritually above the ego, actually your ego is winning. Your ego has won, because now your ego thinks it's fucking spiritual. So number one thing, realize that you got the ego. Now figure out how you can work with the ego. The ego is your personality. Your personality and your ego, it's the same thing. And I happen to like my personality most of the time. I like the person that I am. I don't wish to live a life free of my personality, because I'll have that when I die. That's what real death is. Death is goodbye ego. So if I'm only going to be operating with the ego for a limited amount of time while I'm here, I might as well enjoy myself. I might as well live it up. The best way to get around the spiritual or psychedelic ego is to live a life full of love. The more love you're projecting onto other people, the less control the ego has. Because there's one thing that an unhealthy ego thrives off of. It loves separation. It loves feeling like it's unique and it's its own special individual and it's, somehow better than others. That is a surefire way to make sure that you keep the ego unhealthy. So what I propose is, instead of trying to kill the ego, let's work on keeping our egos healthy and loving. Because a loving ego is a healthy ego. So some very simple steps, simple practical things that you can do is always going to start with your self-talk, because you are your own worst enemy, or you're your own best friend. We're constantly chatting to ourselves in our minds, and some people are just so numb to their self-talk, they don't realize when they're actually being negative and when they're influencing themselves to go down some really dark paths. The first way to make a change is to first recognize that there is something to change. And then you just have to slowly interject. So every time you have some nasty self-talk, interject. Stop it from happening, acknowledge it. And first of all, forgive yourself for having it. Don't judge yourself for having the negative self-talk, because that's going to further bring the ego up. The ego thrives off judgments and off, feeling separate and different. Learn to love yourself just for the way you are. Maybe you are a judgmental person. Love yourself for it. So what? You judge others. Everybody judges from time to time. You don't have to focus on the judgments. You don't have to give them power by thinking about them. But love yourself for it regardless. Just love who you are. And realize that a lot of your judgments for other people actually stems from judging yourself. The way you treat others really is a reflection of how you treat yourself. You'll notice if you stop being so judgmental on you and you stop holding yourself to a higher esteem in a higher regard than others, you'll notice you will also stop judging others as much. Another really big thing is just having disciplines. A lot of us, through giving in to our wants instead of what we need to do, we raise the ego up. We make it exalted. Every time that we give in to, say, I need to do the dishes, something simple, and I give in to the ego, I was like, no, I'll do it later. I don't feel like it. That's giving the ego more power. Discipline would be I need to do the dishes. I don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. The more things that you do in your life that maybe you don't want to do, but you know that it's going to benefit you and you're going to grow from it, that's what you should be doing. And I'm guilty of this all the time. I frequently give in to my ego. But I've noticed that in my own journey, as I've been doing things that I know I should do, but that I may not want to do at the time, once I get into it, whatever it is, I really start to enjoy it. It's the process of starting that's the hardest part. But once I start, I'm good. See everything in your life as a new challenge. It's not, they're not obstacles, they're challenges, which become learning lessons. And as long as you're constantly learning, then you're constantly growing and you're going to be enjoying your stay here. People are going to notice that you're more happy and you're in a state of growth, and that's going to influence the people in your life to do the same thing. That's how we influence each other, by helping ourselves first. It sounds so selfish, but it's true. The first thing I want to point out is this list isn't exhaustive. It's not just these 4 things that you can do to have a healthier ego. There's a lot more stuff that you can do, and it's kind of impossible to just cover in one video. So I want to clarify that even though I said that I don't believe you can live a life 100% free from the ego, I do believe that you can live a life that is a lot happier and a lot more free than a lot of us are living, myself included. I'm not living the best life I could be living. I'm not arrogant enough to say that, yeah, I'm at the exact level I want to be right now. No, life is a constant lesson. We're always learning. The moment you say that you're done learning and there's nothing that you can improve on and you know everything you need to know to live a happy life, is the moment you start regressing. You're either progressing in life or you're regressing. There's no staying still. You don't stay stagnant. I also really want to point out just how many people there actually are in the psychedelic community who are doing all of these ego-destroying substances and yet have some of the biggest egos that I've ever seen. You're taking ayahuasca, you're taking LSD, you're eating psilocybin mushrooms. These substances have the raw potential to completely obliterate your sense of self, to destroy your ego. And yet a lot of people come back from these ego-destroying experiences with something like a hardened ego. I mean, it's really simple. If a healthy individual undergoes an intense psychedelic experience and is shown things that they can fix and change in their life to live a better life, then they're going to do that. But if an unhealthy individual undergoes an intense psychedelic experience and sees maybe those exact same things, well, there's a less chance that they're going to see those things and come back a more healthy and, genuinely good person. They're probably going to stay a bad person. Of course, there are instances where really bad people do take psychedelics and become good people after. I'm simply saying this is not as common as you may believe. And as with any facet to life, anything that people have an interest in, there's going to be good people who are into it and bad people who are into it. And just because you take psychedelics doesn't necessarily mean that you are a ego-free, just loving spiritual type person. That side of the psychedelic journey takes a lot of work, and I'm still very much so just, in the midst of my own journey. I'm nowhere near where I'd like to be or where I should be. I still have a lot of learning and progressing to do, and part of the reason why I enjoy making these videos isn't to teach you guys all this awesome knowledge that I know. It's kind of to take you guys along for the ride with me. I see my channel or channels as my journey, and you guys are all welcome. Whoever's watching is kind of on the ride with me here, learning along with me. The whole point is the journey. The point isn't a destination. There's no moment where all of a sudden you're like, I've made it, I'm there. No more ego, I'm a spiritual person. That doesn't happen. The goal of life is the journey through life. So if you're aware of that and you're constantly growing and learning as a person, then I would say you're on a pretty good path. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave me a big thumbs up or hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for weekly philosophical and life stories and sometimes psychedelic type content. Till next time, take care, guys.